Welcome to the Nonprofit Leadership Dilemma, how to identify and develop new leaders for tomorrow's leadership challenges. This is a webinar in the DCM Associates webinar, Spring 2022's webinar series. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dennis Miller. Dennis, if you take me to the next slide. Perfect. Dennis is founder and president of DCM Associates. He is a nationally recognized strategic leadership coach and executive search consultant with more than 35 years of experience. And he is well known and sought after across the country. He's an expert in board governance, leadership development, philanthropy, and succession planning. He is also a successful author, motivational speaker, retreat facilitator, and leadership performance coach. Dennis has worked with hundreds of organizations across the country. So without further ado, Dennis, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Michelle. I do remember the time you used to introduce me with 25 years of experience, I recall, and I think we probably need to.
That's because I've been introducing you for 10 years.
We're ready to say 40 years of experience. So welcome, everybody. I just want everybody to see our lovely team across the country. And we just added some new people, which will be coming up soon here, but and you see our website. I also want to let you know, and I'll remind you too, anybody that's on the call today or registered who would like to have a free consultation with me for 30 minutes or whatever, at any time you like, just email me and I'll set up a time and I'd be happy to do that here for you. Okay. So I'm going to turn over the meeting to you here. All right. I want to go over 3 objectives today. And probably a 4th. So how to identify and develop new leaders within your organization, how to identify the competencies and skills that they will need to be successful, and how to create a professional leadership development plan for your organization. I can also add another one. It's not only identifying and developing new leaders, but how to retain new leaders. I think this is important as well here. Now, what is leadership development? It's quite simply creating a vital pipeline of leaders at all levels within your organization. So when a transition is necessary, you have someone ready to move up in the order here. Now, if I was to ask all of you, how many of you, as part of your organization, have a strategic plan? I would, it'd be hard to show of hands, but I'm assuming everybody would have either a current strategic plan or one you've done a couple of years ago. If I was to ask everybody, how many of you have a financial plan or annual budget or things like that, I'm sure most of you would have that. If I was to ask you how many of you have a leadership development plan, my guess is that not that many would say you have one. That's my guess, okay? And so leadership development is really a comprehensive, strategic, proactive approach for developing people in your organization. Now, the type of leaders, obviously, and the type of competencies that you need in the future or today are oftentimes very different than the ones you needed in the past, and I'll explain that in a second here. In that regard, I'd say 10 plus years ago, when boards were seeking leaders, they wanted someone who was very mission driven, community relationships, program developer, and a grant writer. That was the focus of their request. Today, they're looking for very different things. They're looking for visionary thinkers. It's not longer the board will set the vision and we want you to implement it. We want you to tell us where we're going. It's a lot of interest in emotional intelligence. Relationship building is crucial. It's collaborator, not just doing it alone. It's how to build a brand and tell the story of the success of your organization, et cetera. So there's a lot of different competencies that people are seeking. Your goal in developing a leadership development plan is simply to create a diverse pool of talented individuals who possess a broad range of skills and competencies and attributes so they can step into a position at any point in time. That makes it simple. I'm sure you will agree with that. By the way, I will be taking questions a little bit later on towards the end of the webinar. And like I said, I'm happy to provide a consultation to anybody for free if you want to let me know. Now, how do we get started with this? Now, we do leadership development programs for trade associations for their members. We can do it for you as an organization. You can do it yourself. Step one here is, and the first thing I would do in your organization, if you haven't done it already, is what are the key strategic goals you have as an organization to achieve your vision? Now, I'm not going to spend time today, this webinar, talking about visionary thinking. But I'm going to tell you from my experience of almost 40 years, that though every nonprofit has a pretty compelling, clear mission statement of why they exist, what's their purpose, very few have a compelling, inspirational statement about what's their vision, what's their future, where they headed. But you want to know what are the key goals that you have to achieve that vision. You then want to have, and I'm sure you do, a comprehensive table of organization. Whether you have, if you have 10 people in your organization, you got a small table of organization, maybe 1 or 2 people. You got 50 people in your organization, you may have 10 people in your management. You have 500 people, you may have much more, obviously. So you want to have knowing who are the boxes that people that position-wise are in some form of leadership. And I say leadership, I'm referring to not just executive leadership. I use the word for everybody, whether it's a supervisor, a manager, director, all that terms. I think of them as leaders. And certainly, we need to be able to understand, as we talked about here, what are the talents and each goal that people have in those positions. What are the talents you need to have if that was position vacant, and what are the goals you have for that person to help you achieve your organizational goals? It's really important that, and the work I've done and the work I've written about, I wrote a book called The Power of Strategic Alignment. The issue is oftentimes what separates great organizations from organizations that still have a good cause, good mission, good people, is the ones that succeed or strategically align behind their vision. They all know their individual roles and how they contribute to the organization's goal and total, achieving it. There's no longer silos, one department versus another. I don't tell you, I'm protecting myself here. And so it is really important that you undergo this first step here. And then clearly you want to summarize and communicate to your organization, this is what you're about to embark upon. I think it's important, and again, skills and competencies are different. Skills obviously are things that you learn on the job, how to be a bookkeeper, how to do a counseling session, how to do a strategic plan, how to do community outreach, etc. Competencies are more the characteristics of the person, them being a change agent, a strategic thinker, an innovator, influencer, those type of things, the kind of competencies they need, the experience and attributes. You want to identify those for each position you have in your table of organization. That's step 2. Now, in step 3 here, and there's 2 ways of doing this here. We recommend that you, and I'm sure you do, have some form of performance review system. And we have a split decision in our firm. There's people like me that think I would reward my top 20% of performers to let them know they've been admitted or rewarded by being into your leadership council, which is developing new leaders, and or as other schools thought that you help everybody do it. I just think it's a good idea to find a way to reward people. And then for the other people to tell them, well, what we need to do to get there. So I do believe in identifying your top performers. Now, it's important also when I talked earlier about not only identifying and developing leaders, but retaining leaders. I know all you know this, but I'm just going to go over this again here. The biggest reason why people leave an organization is not for the money. It can become the money, but it's not the money. They leave because they don't feel 2 things. They don't feel there's an opportunity for them to grow, and they don't feel respected, connected. They don't feel cared for. They don't feel listened to. They feel just a peg in a blank. They don't feel peg in a blank. They just don't feel that they're part of any contribution here. You clearly need to be able to benchmark success attributes. What does that look like? We do highly believe, and we have tools that consider a 360 process when you're doing evaluations. Evaluations generally speak upon the goals that you had at the beginning of the year, whether qualitative or quantitative, and I know you know this. But there's also, you could do well in your goals, but not be perceived well by your teammates, and you want to get perspective on that. And as all of you know, perception can be reality. I do think you want to communicate leadership criteria, whether, again, you believe the top 20% of high performers will become part of your leadership council team, or you want to allow everybody to apply. However it works, it's up to you here. But you want to build a leadership council. And I don't mean just the executive team. I mean, build a council of people that are going to be involved in your program to help identify and develop leaders here. Now, it might sound ironic that here we are, a national executive search firm. There's a tremendous amount of executive search, and I'm telling you to develop your own leadership, but you should be. You want it, the best investment you can make. You know the cost yourself of training new people, recruiting, advertising, promoting, etc. The loss of a talent and duplicate work and someone else helping out, things like that. Now, here's an example, though, of benchmarking some success factors here. And we'll show this a little bit to you later on. And anybody also who wants the PowerPoint, we'll send that to them. We'll get the PowerPoint to you as well. So I know you're going to get the recording, but I'll get this to you. So we have a tool we use called the Telstra MX Assessment, which measures people's core traits, their sense of how they're wired, not necessarily how they behave, but how they're wired. So an example here. This person here, just as an example, has a reasoning ability in the middle, 3, 4, and 5, not necessarily bad. Manageability is fine, very competitive like me, has a low people contact score. However, I know people that have low people contact scores that actually spend a tremendous amount of energy being an extrovert in the workplace setting and even in the social setting. But when they come home, they're exhausted from emotional energy to do that, and they'd rather be home reading a book, but does not mean they don't perform well. I've seen people over here with a strong sense of urgency, which you say, that's fabulous to have those tools, those attributes. But I also know a lot of people who can have a high sense of urgency, that also don't spend any time on precision accuracy. So these are attributes that you want to help identify to someone's core traits, how they're wired, their DNA that helps them develop. And we have tools to help you with that. And you can see our attitude and certainly take charge here. Here's an example it's just an example of a Telstra MX report for someone here. You can see there's job factors here. So they have an 89% job factor matching. That's a good thing for a CEO or COO or anybody in an executive team. And you can see here, example here, people contact over here is low. For this one here, it's a 72% match. And as you go through here, though, our tools provide to you questions that you may want to consider asking people, and it gives you some answers and development tools for it. So you can just see here, you can get 2 people with different scores here. And again, sense of urgency could be, sounds great, but it also could be someone who's not as accurate. And you can also have someone who's take charge, which is what you need here, but they could be almost too much taking charge and they don't empower others. So it's a lot to go behind the scenes here, but I'm just telling you, there are tools out there that you want to utilize to help you develop future leaders. Okay, now, there's also tools that are out there that we have tools that do a 360 assessment on 17 skills. This is something that you should absolutely have when you are looking at developing a leadership team, have a leadership development program. First of all, not only is it good to develop and retain leaders, again, but think about it, and I'll give you a story in a second here. Think about how someone feels, or how would you feel if you're not the CEO? How would you feel if you've been told you've been accepted or promoted, or we want to put you into our leadership development program? You're going to feel terrific. You're going to feel absolutely terrific here. And, in today's world, A lot of challenges here. You know, we're somewhat getting through COVID here. Well, the challenge that you've had, and bless all of you for the work you've been doing over the past 2 years, and I appreciate it, all that stuff here, is, you know, we need a little pat on your back here. But here's an example here. So you want to find out, how well does someone listen to others? How well do they process information? Teamwork, how much of a team player they are. So you can see someone that you evaluate and says, oh, they're hitting all the goals we established for you, but then maybe they're not a team player here. And on about level of engagement, resourceful. Do they take initiative, or are they always waiting for you to tell them what to do? Are they able to make decisions, use good judgment, or are they waiting for you to make the decision? Or like I once had a boss that, you know, he had to have a committee for every decision he made, including changing the temperature of the water in the organization, which is, you know, pretty pathetic. Leadership, do they provide direction? Do they able to delegate responsibility? Are they able to establish trust? And the same thing with achievement. So part of a leadership development plan, and part of an effective leadership development plan, is those first 3 steps: is knowing your goals as an organization, who are the people you have in any level of management, supervisory, directors, vice presidents, etc. Who's your table of organization? And regardless of who's in that position, what do you want them to have as competencies? So if the position is vacant, then you know immediately what we're looking for. Okay. Next here. You have to make a decision about developing a professional development program here. And you can create individual plans for your top performers and council members. And again, we can help with, if, you know, with trade associations that are doing this, or your own organization. And I just, you know, I think, again, ask yourself this: if we have a strategic plan and we have a budget, why not a leadership development plan? Why not? Okay. And that's kind of where we are here. Now, here's an example, though, by the type of courses or topics that you could do yourself here with your own internal mentors and coaches from your own organization. And I'll get to the next one. You may need some help here, okay? But clearly, you know, a course on emotional intelligence, how to become aware of your emotions, the impact they have on others, how to react to the emotions and impacts of other people's emotions. You all know where everybody brings, you know, their family life and personal life to the workplace, and some people can't let it go until they get, you know, when they're there. But these are some ideas. Relationship building. The most important issue that I see in our firm of not only leadership development, but executive search, is the ability to be a relationship builder, the ability to be someone that people trust and respect, that they feel they've earned their credibility. This is important. This is vitally important. Being a brand builder. I'm sure all of you know today how sometimes your organizations are the best kept secret in town, right? So we talk about who we are and what we do, and maybe how big we are or how many programs we are, people we serve in a year. But we don't do a great job always in communicating the positive impact we're having and the achievements we're having. I'll never forget this. A long time ago, I did a workshop for a organization that dealt with domestic violence and sexual assault. And I remember asking them if they could tell me their top 2 achievements. And the response was, we did our budget on time, and I stood there with a straight face, hoping that there was more to come. And someone said, I only spend 6% of our money on fundraising. And I stood there with a straight face until a woman in the back of the room says, we do a program called PALS, P-A-L-S. I said, what is that? It was Organization for Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. It said, we treat children who have been subjected to sexual assault, domestic violence. We treat them so they can have healthy relationships with surrogate parents, foster parents, real parents, teachers, classmates, etc. I'm saying, wow, how well do you communicate that? So we don't do a good job of that. How well do you have been an entrepreneurial spirit here? You know, the public funding that you're hoping to get doesn't come anymore. Most of your state governments have deficits. The federal government doesn't have any money. And so a range of things here. Have something about dealing with difficult employees. So just as an idea, supervisory skills here, supervisory stuff here. Do you have a program on board governance, or have your leadership team develop board governance? There's a great book that one of my colleagues wrote called Supervisory 1.0 by Joe Duffy, the former president of Catholic Charities on the East Coast here. There's a lot of great stuff, financial tools, budgeting tools, hiring, firing, performance. These are courses that you, as yourself, can develop on your own. That's what I believe it. Now, here's sort of step 5 here. Here's step 5 in this process here. Certainly identify amongst your own team who you can see as a mentor or coach. Now, how would you feel if you were told you've been asked, would you be a mentor on our team here? Again, it's a fantastic experience if they have that reward here. I remember going back, Michelle will give you a little update. So I started my career, I was going to joke and say when Abe Lincoln was president, not that far back, it feels like at times. I started my career in the hospital healthcare business. I was a young 38-year-old CEO. I look back sometimes and wonder what I knew, but I obviously knew something. Now I'm not 38, and I look back, geez, what if I know now? But I just remember how we had an employee of the month program. And I remember we used to get, few nominations, and there was a box outside the cafeteria that had employee of the month, suggestions or recommendations, like a little box. And then when we opened it up every month, there was like more cupcake wrappers than anything else. It was like a joke. And we're going to stop this. This is not, we're not going to, this is just silly. But then I said, you know what? No, let's let the employees develop one. So the employees themselves came up with criteria. And all I asked was, before you select someone as employee of the month, just make sure they're not being fired. I was fortunate to have one of my board members who owned a professional baseball team. And I never forget that then whoever was, January, and if their name was Jansen, like Kendra over here, we had, Jansen #1 with the baseball uniform on for the month of January. And, February, we'd have Heidi Warrington. Heidi, you were the one, on #2 for February. And then Mark Lestro, #4. And at the end of the year, I'll never forget, because most people said, well, you talk about the board a lot, Dennis. What's the board? And I realized they don't know. So I invited all the board. After a board meeting, we used to meet in the morning to the auditorium. We had all the employees, all the managers come in, not all the employees, we had 3,000, but all the 250 managers we had in the organization or more. We had all the employees of the month come in, and then in the committee themselves, not me, identify the employee of the year. Well, I got to tell you, I'm glad that we did the program and had it from them, but the idea of being asked to be a mentor or a coach from your organization is amazing. And I ask you, how many you do that? We'll talk about that a little bit later. When needed, engage an outside expert, okay? There's a whole library of courses and books and articles and conferences. I'm not here to sell you on what DCM has. I'm truly believing this is the right thing to do for you to develop the program. I'll explain a little bit later our courses and articles and books and things like that. You want to promote the program. You want people to know we have such a program here, because two things. It's a way for people to feel there's a future there. So otherwise, you're constantly leaving. Even organizations need these, direct care workers, direct service workers. If they don't feel it's an opportunity to move ahead, they're all going to go to McDonald's for $12 an hour. I think you also want to be very important that you are managing each participant's progress in your program. How are they doing? And I, again, would try to identify someone as a mentor or coach within your organization. Let sort of train the trainer, mentor the mentor, okay? And report our results here. And when someone also who didn't get into the program, someone that, jokingly I tell people, if you do a good job on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but you're not here Thursday and Friday, if you came to work 5 days a week, you get a shot at it. But when someone comes and invited to the program, it's fine. And the best way to let people know this works is this. When you have an opening at any level in your organization, even at the CEO level, I don't care if it's a weekend supervisor for community outreach, I don't care if it's director of this program, vice president of this program, supervisor, manager, I don't care what it is. When you can tell in your organization, I'm pleased to announce that so-and-so, that Jane Doe or John Doe, who has formerly been the weekend supervisor, been promoted to the full-time director of the day program. There's nothing better than that, internal promotions. But if you're not focused in on identifying and developing your leaders, you're going to lose them, because that's what keeps them in the organization. So those are the 5 steps. And I'm going to go back just briefly here and review them again, just briefly here. So you want to, obviously, his first step is to identify what are the key goals that we have as an organization we need to achieve our vision. What does our table of organization look like? Is it 10 people, 25 people, 50 people, 2 people? What is it? How do we build a pool of current potential leaders, which we talked about here? What are the profiles and talent profiles we need in those positions? Not saying of the person who's in that job today, but if they were not there, what is the talent profile we need there if that becomes vacant? Communicate to your organization with developing the leadership development program. I said, identify the competencies, skills, attributes, and experience that you would want for every box in that organization, not box. What would you want in that position? Because there'd be some people in that position today that also need to grow and develop. Not everybody who's in the box is fine. So it's not only when the box is empty, but for the people in the boxes today. The third is obviously we, believe 2 things. Oh, I believe one thing. I believe you reward your high-performing promoters and you put them and identify them and congratulate them to join your leadership development program. I am fine with the other school of thought, which is that you invite everybody who wants to become a leadership development, fine, but they gotta exhibit good performance. You want to identify your high top performance here, and we just talked about, we'll go back, success factors in 360. You want to make sure that you have a communication strategy for this year, and you have so-called a leadership council. We talked about success attributes. You can see these, and these are on our Telestra MX assessment, which looks like this. It's much more. This is just a summary page. It's dozens of pages explaining each of these scores and what you can do about it and questions you can ask people. It's very detailed. These are some of the 17 skills that you want to have in developing someone who's currently a leader and someone who wants to be a leader. And this is, we do it through our 360 process to help identify, and that's a perception. Perception is reality here. Okay. Now, we talked about step 4, which was, develop a program and create a plan to move this forward here. And obviously the type of courses that you can have for that and others. And step 5 about trying to utilize as much of yourself as possible, your team here. What are the benefits? Let me go back for those that just came in late. Let's identify your managers and leaders who could be coaches. We can help you with a whole range of courses, articles, books, conferences, online courses, etc. We can help you any aspect if you want, okay, but help you do it yourself. What are the benefits of this? Well, number 1, it's employee retention. I said if you look at the factors about why people leave an organization, I know this factually for a lot of reasons. It's not just the money people leave for. Money becomes secondary. They just either they don't like who they work for, they don't feel there's an opportunity here. Now, in between being the CEO of 2 major medical centers in my career, I was a corporate executive for a large publicly held company. And one of the services we offered was risk management and workers' compensation. So I got to know the insurance world. And I learned, truthfully, that in workers' compensation, half the people on workers' compensation are not out because their back hurts. They're out because they can't stand their boss. And so that's a problem. So we want to have, if this is some of your goals, if you would like to have higher employee retention, improve morale, knowing that, hey, I come home, tell my wife and my kids and my mom, my dad, and my brother and sister, or my spouse, my partner, whoever, my pet, I just been promoted. I'm in a program to promote it here. That's why people stay. you'll increase performance and motivation because that becomes the key. Career advancement. It'll energize your entire organization. The entire organization will be energized, and you will differentiate yourselves in the marketplace. You want to have a market strategy? You want to have a branding strategy? Yeah. How about telling people how many employees we retain and how many we promote? Again, we talked about development of mentors and coaches here. But here's the most important thing. Create a culture of success. Just create a culture of success. That attracts not only employees, it attracts board members, it attracts donors. And so that is crucial. If you want to be a successful organization, however you define success, I define success in a couple of ways. Having a positive impact on those you serve in your community, and have a culture of success in your organization that wants people to be there, whether they're volunteers. We all depend upon volunteer organizations or volunteer members. You want board members of volunteers and staff to feel excited about it. And again, last but not least, a development plan will have a greater impact on the people you serve, and what a benefit. So I'd ask you this. How many of you have a leadership development program? And if not, sort of why not are you ready to do that now? Summarize again. It's required for smooth transition of leaders. Nobody. I mean, I got a client who's been in this, I got a CEO client who's been in this job 50 years, but not everybody stays. They move on. So it's vitally important, or you ask yourself, do you think it's vitally important to have people with the skills and competencies that you can develop to ensure your organization has the right people in place at the right time when you're ready for a transition here? Okay. You want to have a plan so you can identify the key goals you face, the competencies you need, and how to address them, identify mentors along those way to create that program. That it doesn't work by itself here. In the first book I wrote, and I always joke with people, if you get to know my background a bit, I had to overcome a lot of challenges, is an understatement, as a kid. I wrote my autobiography 6 years ago called Moppin', M-O-P-P-I-N, Moppin' Floors as CEO, From Hopelessness and Failure to Happiness and Success. So yes, I was a 38-year-old CEO, but at 24 years old, I was pretty homeless. I lived in a YMCA. I cleaned bathrooms at a Ramada Inn for a year, and eventually I got a room in a boarding house. I had no four-year college degree. I got rejected by every college coming out of high school. I was not a good academic performer. I grew up in a very abusive household, but I was able to turn my life around. And so from that here, I can see about how we all can reach our potential if we have a little bit of help here. And so the idea of helping and mentoring people is fabulous here. And so if you don't have a program here, there's no better benefit than doing one now. So the question is, the sustainability of your mission, the impact you're having in your community, and the values you incorporate in your workplace depend upon a successful leadership development plan. Are you ready? So I'm going to just talk about a couple of things, and I want to open up for questions here. By the way, everybody who is on the call, we will send you not just a recording. I'm going to make sure you get sent the whole presentation. Okay, so if you're developing a plan, we can help you with identifying your teams or assessing your team's leadership and personality traits. We can help identify your 360 perceptions. We have we have our executive search division, but we also have our Institute for Transformational Nonprofit Leadership and Board Performance, and we have very affordable tools, extremely affordable tools for performance evaluation surveys that start at about $250, $350. We have an online course to how to become a high-performing leadership team that you could have 25 people in that for a year for a total of $975, which is about $30 a person. And it comes with an hour consultation from me. So we have the tools, coaching, etc. I highly encourage you. Again, our team of people and our team are people that have 30, 40 years a must of experience here. So I'm just giving you a little bit of that here. Is that now, if I can, I want to sort of open this up. Michelle, you still here? Or you gone? Hold on.
Still here.
All right. So what I'd like to do is, if we can, I'm going to see the chat room here. What's we got here? Okay. So I'd like to see if we can take any questions that anybody has, or and you can unmute yourself, and I'll try to deal with it that way. But here's what: if you don't want to admit you can say I have a friend as is, but I know I'm sure you have some questions here. I try to go through this kind of quickly, the steps here, but here's what. If you're part of a trade association, statewide, national, we develop these programs for you, with you. And if you're a single organization, we can help you develop one for yourself here. And so, Michelle, do you have any other questions that you see coming in here at all? Do you have any questions?
And
Michelle?
I see one that came to me privately. The question is, for a more established organization, what are some strategies for introducing a concept like this into the culture?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things here. It's a great question. Is this: you are having conversations with your employees at all time. You are having conversations with your managers at all time. You are talking about the challenge you have in front of you, or the strategies you need to have. Why not begin a conversation about what we want to invest in you? How about that become a theme? We want to invest in you. It's not a lot of money. This is not a lot of money to do that here. And the money you're paying by putting ads in Indeed every time you got a leader, and then you get people that are not even qualified, whatever. So the value is this here. Start the conversation. It's like, I want to have a conversation about having a better relationship with you here. I'm married 40 years, but my wife still wants to have that conversation. So I think have that conversation with your team, management team. I know we got alligators biting us around the ankles, Michelle, but my comment is that you're still going to be there. So the best thing to do is just start the conversation about how do we make sure that we have leaders when, either a leader leaves and there's a transition needed, or how do we help develop the people we have in leadership positions today to become better leaders? So I think just have that conversation.
A second question is kind of a two-parter. How would you suggest determining how to set the budget for a program like this? Is the first part. The second part is what would you measure, or what data would you collect to show the impact of that investment?
Yeah, two things. I think that you should set a budget by two ways. Either just identify a pool of money that you may have, whether it's $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever the number is. Identify a pool of money that you may have to invest in. It's like a new initiative, or do some research. Speak to people like us or others, but internally, your HR executives, whatever, about what would it take if we want to develop this on our own? Who do we have ourselves? So that's not going to cost you anything, and that I'm just making this up. We're going to have a 10-course program over a 4-month period of time. So we're going to have a fall session, maybe a spring session. And we have 6 instructors, but we need to get a few other instructors. So you reach out to them from your community, your trade association, your colleagues, okay, or people like us, whatever. So you can kind of develop that thing, what you need in terms of support, mentors, coaching, material. That's easy to do. The best way for me to measure success is employee retention and employee morale and employee satisfaction. And that when are you seeing a dramatic decrease in, certainly on the management side, positions when you're not placing ads, you're not having people spend time overtime or handling 2 jobs because Mary has left and we haven't replaced Mary yet. So I think the best way of doing it, both on the budget side, is try to develop a program on your own. What would you have and what would you need on the outside, and get some people's advice. I'm happy to do it for you. And then number 2, clearly, is the real success factors of success. How many people have we been developing? So I go back, Michelle, you know this, but the attendants won't know. So back in 2012, I had created through myself and Dennis C. Miller a program with a large university in New Jersey. I'll tell you, it was Fairleigh Dickinson University at the time. And they are the largest private university in New Jersey. I created something called the Center for Excellence in Leadership, Governance, and Philanthropy. We created a certificate program, both for executive leaders and for people in philanthropy resource development here. It was the most rewarding tool. When I would go to a CEO and say, you have someone you want to reward and recognize, it was like, yeah, I got Sally, I got Jimmy, and it was massive pat on the back. It was probably $1,200 a person, something like that here. And so, but there's, it's not a lot of money. You could, do this relatively inexpensively. We can help you create a program. Well, I said, our online course program itself, to talk about how to become a high-performing executive leadership team, that one course for 25 people that's $975 in total, and it comes with a handbook. And so that's $30 a person. That, that's not, I don't think that's a lot of money. And so there are tools that are out there that you can have us and other things here. So I hope that answers that question a little bit, Michelle.
Okay, next question. What should we consider when selecting a leadership assessment to use across our team? There are so many available.
Yeah, no, it's a good question here. We happen to partner with Telexis because I've used all the tools that are out there, and I find Telexis is the best one. And I'll tell you what, when I did my own assessment, it nailed me. It told me exactly who I was. And I know all the others that are out there. So you got to find the one that works for you. Just find if it works for you, you're comfortable with it, you can explain it, you have consultants from the firm. Find a tool that works for you. I mean, there are a lot of out there. We are, we're partners with Telexis. We're very comfortable. The only tools we have, the only tools that we haven't created ourselves are the ones, the Telestra MX assessment and the Telestra 360. All the other tools we've developed ourselves that are very affordable. Example, we have a tool that you can take your entire leadership team, everybody reports to the CEO and the entire board, and you can evaluate your organization in 8 different areas of everything from values, culture, mission, strategic goals, branding, philanthropy, program development, et cetera, with your board, and get a comprehensive report and an hour consultation for $975. It's very affordable. We have a CEO evaluation tool that allows the board to evaluate the CEO and the CEO to do a self-evaluation tool for $975. We have a tool that you can have your own people to be evaluated, self-evaluated. I think it's like $250 to $350. So our tools are not expensive, but I think you should check out all the resources you can. The idea, more importantly, is that if you want to be successful in the business of serving others in our community, we need people, and we need leaders, and it does, and at every age and at all range of it. And I also want to just throw in here clearly, we are a massive proponent commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. You should be as well, and that could be a course. We teach that course as well. So I hope that gives you some kind of thinking about that. But again, it may sound easy to me, and it may be challenging to you. But think about it. If you invested anything in your organization, what more would you want to invest in? So I hope today.
One more question, Dennis.
Sure.
One more, last one. Any advice on supporting a team member who scores strongly in leadership areas and matches well to a director type position, except in areas of confidence and self-assuredness? Leadership potential is there, but lacking the self-belief to step into a role we would like them to.
Well, it's interesting because we're doing a search. It's almost finished. We were doing a search recently. I won't say the organization's name because there's an inside candidate and an outside candidate. But when we were doing the first phase, Michelle, and talking to the stakeholders and the members of the team, because their CEO was retiring after like a long time. And I reached out to the COO just to schedule an appointment with her that we can talk to her about her perspective on what she wanted in a new CEO. And I remember in the email, I asked, I said, something you're interested in? She said, no. And I sort of said, okay, that's fine. But as my colleague, Jim McGurk, Dr. Girk, and I were speaking with her, I realized that something was very special about her. And I kind of asked her why she was not thinking about the job, and basically came out that she wasn't feeling confident. And I realized that That's very typical for young people. It's very typical, unfortunately, for young women. It's very typical for people of minority population diversity. It's very typical for a lack of confidence from their life experiences there. So Jim and I encouraged her to throw a hat in the ring, and she's being seriously considered here. So I think, again, it's a different day for a different course here, but I just finished a big TED talk at the National Council for Mental Wellbeing about my personal life experience of mopping floors as a CEO, 10 life lessons of perseverance and determination. I hope you really, if you like reading a good story, I hope you read my book someday. But I went from a kid that had no confidence. I did poorly in school. That was because of an abusive household. I graduated at the bottom of my high school class. Truthfully, I graduated 358 out of a class of 360. I got rejected by every college. And 10 years later, when I finally got my act together, to a lot of help, I graduated tops of my class at Rutgers and Phi Beta Kappa and went on to Ivy League grad school. So there's nothing more important that we have today. It's not skills and just talents and competencies. It's exactly this. It's instilling confidence in people. And one of the things I said in my TED Talk, which will be hopefully live soon in a few weeks, is this. Every small step of a small achievement leads to greater self-confidence. Small steps, baby steps. So if you see someone on your team that has potential but lacks the confidence, be their mentor. Encourage them, pat them on the back. I just can't tell you enough. And it's true. And I mean, Michelle knows. I mean, Michelle and I have been working together, for 18 years with my firm. And the joke is, I said, Michelle's always made me look good. And then my colleagues say, yeah, because she's been working with me for 25 years. But it's a true story about, I went from, being in a bad place, bad place to, at 24 years old, cleaning bathrooms, at 38 years old, becoming a CEO. And, I'm a little bit past 38, but I've grown, and it's a joke I tell people in my TED Talk, but I don't have a very high IQ. I know that because I get my butt kicked in Jeopardy. My wife can beat me at sports U.S. cities, but I have a high EQ. And so anyway, I don't want to take up more time, but I do want to see if there's any other questions, Michelle, and I want to thank all the people that we've had attending. And again, I'll be happy to, any consultation you want, I'll give you 30, and I don't count the clock, 30 minutes of my time for free. If you want to ask me questions about your own organization yourself, what you have to do is email me, Michelle Dennis. There's email dennis@dcm-associates.com. And I'm happy to do it here. And I want to see if we can, I guess we wrap it up, Michelle.
Yep, that was the last of the questions, so we can wrap it up.
Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate, Michelle, you again, help here. I hope I encourage all of you to take a look at our website, dcm-associates.com, or just denniscmiller.com, same thing. And, but I wish you well in what you do. What we do as a firm is 100% into the nonprofit sector. We work exclusively with behavioral healthcare organizations, children family services, ton of work in intellectual development disabilities, social impact organizations, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Make-A-Wish, etc. I thank you all for what you do every day, and God bless. Thank you.